Welcome to the AVN Desk. Joining me today is digi.B, the developer of Artemis. We'll be talking about the game, its characters, themes, as well as the creative process behind bringing it all together. Without that, let's just jump right into it. digi.B, thank you for joining me today. And let me just start with, if somebody came to you, some random person, and asked you, they've never heard of Artemis, and asked you, what is the game about? What would you say?
I was gonna take notes for this one, but I felt like, it'd be fun to just get the raw part of it. But it's basically life as an android, and being brought into this world. And for those who've played up to chapter 7, kind of realize that the story is now taking a turn. So keeping that in mind, um, we're just following the life of an android as they navigate living amongst the humans and trying to find. Basically, it's almost like a mirror of how humans are. Like, we always try to find our place in life and what we want to do, or where should we be, or we ask ourselves these questions. And these are the questions that Artemis asks and gets answered along the way of this story. So basically, it's just following the life of this android who has been brought to this world.
Mhm. And so the android is named after the name of the game, Artemis, or maybe
Mhm.
the other way around. I guess
Yeah.
which one came first?
Well, that's a good question because before I even came up with the name, it was a very bland name. Like the working title was, I think it was called Auto Autonomous, was the original like working title, the project file I had when I was writing everything. And eventually, it just, well, one, it was a mouthful, and two, many people probably won't even like, you read it and you know the word, but sometimes you just can't like pronounce it right away. With Artemis just rolls off the tongue, so I might as well just called it after the character that it's about. Even though it is about her, but chapter 1 kind of throws people off because it's like we really don't, not chapter 1, book 1. We really don't see her until the very end of it, and so I can imagine some people's reactions as they play this game called Artemis. Yet 4 chapters, we really don't get anything from this character, but I decided to stick with it because it just rolled off the tongue well.
And so, what was the main inspiration behind this story? Was it the Artemis as AI? I mean, that's what you mentioned in introduction.
Mhm.
But also, on the other hand, like you mentioned in book, like I think book one ends with Artemis. We'll maybe do like light spoilers, but Artemis actually waking up and
Right.
turning off the electricity from the whole city, which I think was a funny moment. Uh, but yeah, what was the original idea?
Um, Artemis. Well, it's kind of funny because I mentioned the previous title I was working on years ago. This is like back in 2010. I was working on it was a script that was originally going to be a live action, and I was like, well, the budget for this is just way too crazy to do. So I decided I didn't want to stunt my idea. So I was like, well, graphic novels sounds like a good route to go. So I went that route, and then I started working with 3D characters and 3D art, and actually have a trailer of that from way back out. Again, as uh, about 16 years ago now. Yeah. And so I kind of, it kind of just, this is one of those projects that kind of just made me feel like, I'll do it myself because, you try to bring people on board, but, a lot of people fizzle out. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. But to your question, I took inspiration from a lot, and I took inspiration. There's a lot of characters I pulled from my original story, which was basically had nothing to do. The stories are very different, but the characters that kind of pull, like Kendra is one of them, um, who same kind of concept, different personalities though. She was a a prodigy in that story, and Kendra as a prodigy in this story as well, and in her own right as an engineer. But as far as characters go, I got some from there, and then it's kind of a culmination of different stories that I've watched, mostly Terminator. I want to say the most um, Wally, all these characters, but I think the most closest one that you can kind of like compare is Chappie, um, which is about a Chappie. It's a good movie. It's just it got muddied up by these other characters. It'd have been nice if they took the human element out of it, minimized it, and then kept the story about the creator and the AI. And the whole premise of that whole movie was this guy works for this company who built these androids who are part of a police force, and this is like back in, I think it's South Africa is where it takes place in. And the engineer, the software engineer, has been working on this code to give androids sentience, and he finally cracked it. And then that's where the story kind of takes place, where this android comes to life, and they call him Chappie, and they kind of raise him. So it's similar to Artemis. Artemis has this arc of clean slate, zero uh, consciousness, quote unquote, and then it develops over time. So Chappie has this very childish mentality, and as the story progresses, it doesn't evolve to like more of adult state, but you see it grow from quote unquote infant to you know he's still kind of a childish mentality, but that's because the story takes place within like a couple of weeks, I want to say. um, so I want to say like a lot of inspiration was subconsciously taken from that, because when I wrote Artemis, or when I started writing Artemis, I wasn't really um, like thinking of anything, but I don't want to say like nothing inspired me, because obviously a lot of things did, especially since there's a lot of seeded what would you call those references. There's a lot of Mass Effect in there. There's a lot of pop culture references. So there's clearly inspiration taking place. So I don't want to say like I just wrote this on my own, but if I had to say, Chappie was one of the ones who kind of, I saw the movie, I really liked it, and I kind of just was wanted to tell my own version of that, and obviously other elements to that.
So
Mhm.
while doing research for this, I went through a lot of your comments. Pretty much, I know everything about you now. But yeah, I've seen that. I think you were not you might correct me, but I think you were a software engineer or developer.
Yeah,
For
I was a God. Well, I went to school for God, it's been so long. I got my degree in 2012. Network administration, with the emphasis on business, is what I think it says on my diploma, or whatever it is, my degree. Um, and so yeah, and that's an interesting story in itself, because I mean, I love tech, I love computers, obviously, clearly. I mean, if you see anything I share on Discord or anywhere, I've built a whole server around this, focusing on just maintaining the Artemis project. But a lot of that does involve my career as a network administrator. And the thing about that was, when I was out of high school, I wanted to go. Here's the thing: in junior year, I discovered 3D animation and 3D art, and that kind of sparked interest, because growing up, my innate talent is drawing, and it evolved to 3D art. And then in high school, we had this program called ROP animation, and that really just drew me. And I remember spending the summer of my junior year, just I got a hold of the program that they're using. I think it was Lightwave, and I just spent the entire summer just playing around with it. And then my senior year, I went up to the instructor. I was like, "Hey, I know like we're we're you have to have a prereq to join the animation class. And I was like, well, here's what I've been working on, and I showed him. He's like, okay, well, we can do this. He couldn't put me into the program itself, but he said, seeing what I can do, he says he'll put me into there, but he'll give me separate assignments. So that's what kind of sparked this whole thing with 3D work and all that. But when it came to graduating, I wanted to get an MFA in animation, Masters of Fine Arts. But the thing is, this is way back in 2010, 20 no 22. I graduated in 2005, so around that era, online courses were not as common as they are today. YouTube was barely in its infancy at the time, so the only way I can get that MFA is if I go to move to San Francisco, which is it's ridiculously priced over there, and I would not survive. So at that point, I was in the fork in the road. I was either take a gamble, go to San Francisco, or go the safe route and just the closest degree I was told that I can get in computers was networking, and so I went the safe route and did that for got my bachelor's in that. So I kind of deviated from what I really wanted to do, and then but in that I also learned a lot being a network admin, and it translated a lot. It's funny how we come full circle because now working on Artemis, I had I had the know-how to create my server and all the entire infrastructure of what it is, um, to maintain the project. So that includes like backups of backups, the NAS system, um, the two servers, the rendering box, and then the actual NAS, the networking side of it. It all kind of just came together. It was really easy to put that together once I got more serious, as I got more profits from like Steam and support. I was able to just reinvest that into Artemis and build this really nice structure for it. And now it's like I've had a couple of close calls with data, but again, unfortunately, because I've had all this background, I've had all of my safety measures in place. You know, hiccup compared to what could have been.
Yeah, and something that you mentioned, it's very interesting that you were interested in 3D animation specifically for some
Hmm.
time because when I play different AVNs and then I talk to developers, it's always interesting to see something that is not really too important for the game, but it's important to them that you like see it happen. So for
Hmm.
you, it's 3D animation. If you start the menu, and I'm sure people who've played it seen it, menu is fully animated. You have things, and it also changes based on I think how
Story
far you have
progression.
played. Yeah,
Hmm.
based on progression. Even inside the game itself, you have a lot of animation. So I guess I'll just ask this since we are kind of here. But how important for you do you think is 3D animation for AVNs?
It's animations are important where they need to be. As a developer, I'm very choosy on what is an animation and what isn't. To your point, when you fire up the game, the very first thing you see, aside from like the are you 18 years old and the logos and everything, the main menu is pretty much what you see, and usually the last thing you see at the end of at the start of the game, and then at the end of a chapter or the game, um, is what you see is that. So I like having an animation there. The one of the menus you're talking about, I think the memories section, that has been playing a hidden role since chapter one and has not changed. The UI has changed everywhere else, but the memory section has not, and that's for a reason I can't tell. But we're getting there um, in the story. And so I wanted that to really stand out to people. Even the whole wording of that whole section is all, it's deliberate. But you know, I think as a developer, we need to really consider what we consider. needs to be an animation and um, what can be done as a still. That's why I like to use these. I tell everybody who, in my devlogs I call them micro animations. They're basically just the still images, but like they're kind of like if you were to play back an animation in like 3 FPS, you get 3 images that create the animation, and I don't have to worry about my animating the entire thing. You get the same effect. You get the same emotion or imagery that you're trying to deliver in those 3 images instead of a whole animation. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
How do you decide a scene is finished?
That one is a very good question because, and I think as you're describing it, it really makes me think about, a lot of people ask, I shouldn't say a lot of people. There comes people that ask like, why does it take so long, or what have they been doing for this point that you're now working on this, and if that's because a lot goes into, especially as a solo developer. If I had a partner who did the renders and I focus on the writing and coding, I can focus on that while they focus on when I'm done writing the scene and planning it out, and we've gotten the collaboration part done. And okay, so now I'll hand off this scene to you, and you start working on this. It's a different beast solo because so uh, everything is in phases. Like it's great that you caught me in this early in development of chapter 8, because I'm able to tell with a fresh mind where we're at. Like we're still, even though I'm working on scenes, or yeah, scenes. I'm I'm still in the planning phase of. I shouldn't say planning phase, but like still in like um the I'm trying to find another word for it. I'm going to use lack of a better word. I'm still in the planning phase because I've redone the outline a few times, and um, so that means the script is changing. What I've written already gets tweaked a little bit here and there, and as I'm going on, I'm working on something else. Something comes to mind, I'll go back, tweak it a little bit more, and then go back. And it's kind of why I try to. It's hard for me to work out of order because it's hard for me to work on the opening scene and then be like, okay, well, let me just, even though it's really simple to just like, okay, we'll just now work on scene 18, even though you're working, and even though you just got done with scene 1, work on scene 18. It's a weird thing for me to do that. So that's why I have to work in chronological order. It also helps me maintain continuity. So when I'm going through the script, I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. And I go back and my suspicions are correct, where something was written that was a continuity error. And later, and as I'm working on the scene, because it's still fresh in my mind of I just got done working on this scene. Whereas out of order, you know, the different events happening, I can't keep track of, for me at least. So, back to your question, I start with an outline of each scene, and the I have obviously a master, like what would you call those? I have a master um, uh, script that has, it doesn't necessarily say word for word what's going to happen, but I have this whole thing, like I know how the story is going to end, and then I know there are key beats that I have set in place that are supposed to happen at these points of the story, whether it's chapter 8, chapter 9, 16, whatever. um and so that's kind of like my bible, and that does change, or not, I shouldn't say change, it does evolve over time, because when I'm working on something, like when I started on this, AI, that as it is today, wasn't where it was when I started this back in 2022. And so being in this stage in development, and AI is what it is currently in real life, it's really fun, because it's like now I have something to pull from to add to the story. And so the process is very organic. Like I have my notes and I have what's going to happen, but then sometimes I'll either get a new idea or something happens where I will like, okay, well, it'll be better if this happened instead. So it's constantly evolving. So once I'm done with the outline, and at this point, we're really not getting any new environments. So because usually what will happen is when I'm working on the outline, I'm working on environments too. That means um, um, scouting for like Kendra's apartment or the safe house or the park or just various locations that scenes will take place. And so I'll be browsing online while if I have a writer's block, I'll take a break and just like browse online for assets, see what I like, see what fits. If I don't find it in the DAZ stores, I'll look at other places and then import those and convert those to DAZ assets, and then use those to get the scene I want. And then comes the script writing of it, like the actual dialogue, which takes and another portion of time because I'm very meticulous about the dialogue. Like you and I, like, or the conversations will be having right now is it's kind of general, but so we don't really need a creative voice, kind of. But if we were to go to our separate ways with our friends, our family, our dialogue changes and based on who we're with. So those kinds of different personalities that goes with these characters, it takes time for me to kind of like shapeshift into these characters because you're almost like an actor um, writing the dialogue. Because like, okay, well, I'm writing as Aiden now. This is what he sounds like, and then I have to shift gears. I'm like, okay, well, now I'm with Naomi. How does she respond to what he just said, or how does she respond to what just happened? And that not just goes from dialogue, but also the rendering part too. Like what how does she react? What kind of expressions would she give? Same thing with all these characters have. If we think about the story, they've all reacted very differently to something, and so it's those little quirks I have to keep in mind. So it's like sometimes I do mess up. I'm like, oh crap, I got to go back and fix that. So, um, and I know it's a long-winded answer to how does the story start and end, or how does the scene start and end. And that is the process though of what goes on. It's not creating a scene is more than just download an asset, throw it into DAZ, put the lighting, throw the characters in, boom, it's done. There's so much involved in just one scene alone. um, and again, it goes back to dialogue. I think the dialogue is the most important part of a scene, because if the dialogue is just filler, which is fine. It's just if your scenes are constantly filler, it becomes dry and boring. So you got to make filler scenes even interesting to look at, or whatever's happening is interesting, and not just for the sake of something being random and it's like, oh, that threw me off, that was pretty funny, but then it doesn't really like help the scene much other than oh, that was a funny haha. So these are these things you got to like keep in mind as you're structuring the scene. And when I say a scene is done is when I reach the end of the dialogue. Less like if you look at my code, it's each label is a scene, and when I reach the end of that label, or when I reach the end of that first label and the new label comes in, that's my cue that the scene is done. Which is it's kind of an odd thing to say, because if you look at my entire, let's say chapter 7 for example, you visually you're like, okay, well the scene ended there, but in the script, no, even though location change, it's still part of the same scene, because the same, I want to say the same topic is the same. So we really haven't changed scenes yet. So it's like, it's different from we're working on Artemis and then cut to Cassie working on Hunter. That's an obvious scene change. But if we're talking to Artemis in the workshop and then Aiden goes upstairs and talks to Kendra in the in her loft, same subject, or regarding the same subject, technically it's still the same scene in my eyes. So it's really it's really involved um, on how the scenes are structured and what I when I say it begins and when I say it ends and moves on to the next one. So it's a lot to keep track of, as you can imagine. For me, at least, I know for other, it's probably a lot simpler.
What do you think is your sort of, I guess, obligation? You people buy the game on Steam, or I don't know, was your game on itch.io originally?
It is,
Okay. So
yeah,
yeah,
it is.
they buy it there. Some people support you on Patreon. How do you think of, am I being fast enough? Am I being productive enough? Do you have any, are you constantly, I'm self-employed, for example, so you kind of are
Mhm.
constantly in a work mode. Is
Right.
this something you have problem with? Or, yeah, how do you think about how much should I work on this when I have, people supporting me?
Obligations, right? And that's kind of the crux that we're in, because everyone has their reasons for doing this. Everyone has their methods. Everyone's different. Everyone, you know, they everyone cooks a cake differently. Whether or not it's good, I mean, if someone took longer making a cake and it's good, it's just as good as one who made a who took less time and it's good to them. It really depends on what it is we're looking at and what it is we're eating and what the ingredients involved in that. But it's I treat Steam, Patreon, and itch is a weird one because in my early research, I was trying to get on whatever platforms I could to get things started, because I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to write a story and put it out there, and I had no idea it'd get to this point. So it was one of those things where it's like I wish I knew more about it, and then especially with the direction they've gone recently with the whole how they're treating AVN developers and AVNs as a in general, it's kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. So I still put my
Can
project
you
on
maybe
there.
just expand on it just so people who are not
Yeah, yeah. So guys, it's been so much time passes as these things happen, because I can tell you so many things as in the 5 years I've been doing this, so many things have happened, and as far as like adult content goes. But what happened with itch was, and this is all just because when I look up something, I look up information that I can like you know digest and like make a decision off of. I don't really go to what people just say online. From what I can recall, there was this group called something shout.
collective shout?
Basically, there you go. Yeah, collective shout. They raised some noise with Steam. Steam pushed back because of and this is involving the payment processors. Excuse me. Um, and so they were threatening. Payment processors were threatening things on their end with the platforms. Steam is obviously a lot bigger, has more money to throw at, so they kind of just, if I remember right, they pushed back and they left us alone, basically. Us being AVN developers. Itch, on the other hand, they folded. They basically delisted us. So I haven't checked since, but if you search for any kind of AVN on there, it won't show up. You have to I forgot how, like, people were creating like curated lists, and that was one way to look for them. I think if you Google a developer, the title, and then itch, I think it'll show up on there. But I'm not sure if they fixed it now, but or fixed, but they went they changed it they changed it back to how it was before, where you can just search up an AVN and it shows up. But basically, we got kind of like you know kind of just disregarded in that sense. Like, and there's some developers who they can't really be on Steam for whatever reasons. I'm not sure if what the legality is of itch, but I think itch might be one of their other sources that they can be put on. So if you take that away for them, you're really hurting their income. So it was just a bad business move. Like I understand wanting, like I understand if it was a more like if it involved like customers as a whole and it was hurting them in some way, but the fact that this group was getting on the backs of these uh, credit excuse me credit
Payment
card
process.
processors or whatever. Yeah, there you go, payment processors, and then in turn, making uh, itch flinch on that move. It's it's just not right. The biggest thing was though was I'm trying to remember. Like I've moved on, but I haven't looked back at itch. I still, like I said, I still update it and I still put it on there because I'm obligated to do that. Like I'm not gonna. People paid for it there, so I'm not gonna like just stop. Um, so it goes on there, but future projects I won't be putting it on itch anymore. And and then so that answers that. And Steam, the difference between for me, the difference between Steam and Patreon is it's a support thing. You're helping me reinvest back into the project and other things involving it, like the server. Like the server that I built was mostly due to the how much I got from Steam. And so I was able to build a nice backbone for this project, which has really come in, like I said before, has really come in handy when things kind of failed. Um, the recovery was so quick. It was even like it's like a hiccup in the whole like grand scheme of things. But I did an early release on Steam, and because I did feel bad, Steam users having to wait um, for the updates because I released book one as book one, book two we released as book two, and then three and four because those are just completed content. Like I haven't touched anything in book one since I released it or since I completed it. It's any content has just been book two, and then when I'm done with that, I don't really plan on changing anything other than the of course the remaster I'm trying to redo with chapter one and maybe two. But aside from that, like book one hasn't been touched. Like it's a completed book, and I consider that a completed project. And in that sense, I'm not saying Artemis is completed. I'm not trying to say like I have a completed project. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying book one is done. Here it is on sale on a big platform like Steam. Book two is in development, so I'm not treating it as a here it's done. Here's a product type of thing. And I think that's where people get kind of get confused. Like oh, we're paying customer, and well, we don't even know we don't even know where they're saying this from, but oh, I'm a paying customer, blah blah blah. Well, and then it's like, well, book two is in development. Like there's things constantly evolving, things constantly being fixed, things constantly being updated, features being added here and there. They get rolled over or folded over to into book one if needed. But uh, my obligation is book one is done. Here it is, Steam. Let me focus on book two. I released book two as an early access because I was like, I felt bad that this is taking so long, and especially with everything that happened in my personal life in the last like 2 years, that kind of inflated the development for chapter six, which increased time as a whole for book two. So like, okay, well, let me put book two on EA early access and see how that goes. Um, and it makes sense. People who want to wait, that's fine. Like it's not for you. People who can't wait, it's for them who want to like have it but don't want to have who don't like the Patreon model. So I'm trying to cater for both sides here, and you kind of get pulled, you kind of get stretched out by that. So at the end of the day, my focus is on Artemis. And yeah, to what you were saying earlier, yeah, I going back to what I was saying earlier about how one scene alone, how much work is involved in that. And at the same time, I also want to have time for, my friends, my personal life, what's left of my family now. And it's like, I want to, have like, a life too. So it's definitely a balance that's not easy to do sometimes, because like right now things are really nice because I'm not in that crunch period of trying to, because when development comes to a year, um, it gets stressful for me, because it's like I don't like that. I don't like year-long developments, because one, it's making people wait. Two, I want to get done with Artemis. Like, I have another project that I have planned, but I'm not gonna waste time, or I'm not gonna rush Artemis to complete that to work on this next one, because I still love Artemis and I want to finish it as it as I envisioned it to be finished before doing that. And it's a hard thing to finesse, because it's funny, because like like I said, doing this for 5 years, my friends are kind of like uh, know my schedule now. Like, oh, he's in crunch period right now, so we're not really gonna. We'll throw him an invite, but like, we kind of just check in on to make sure, one, to make sure he's alive, but two, hey, if you're free, this is what we're doing. Okay, cool. I'll try to make it, type of thing. But these are my friends I've known for years, and um, mortality has been something on my mind lately, since my mom passed. So I'm like, the time we have with our friends and family, it's like, man, we really need to cherish that too. So, that work life balance is definitely something that um, we need to really consider. I'm also taking speaking to my fellow devs too. Um, it does get stressful, and it does get um, you know eh, that crunch period of like, we're trying to wrap things up. We're trying to wrap things up. Like chapter 7, I pumped the brakes hard. We went to the beta for like a month almost, and we really, really just play tested it. And because usually what happens is I'll hit beta, hard 2 weeks, done, release, and usually there's bugs. This time, I was able to just tell myself to just slow down, stop. Um, no point in rushing it right now, because we see the finish line, or I see the finish line, and it's time to just you know not rush it, and really just catch whatever fell through. And I think me constantly reminding my followers that, hey, I don't care if you use mods, but just heads up, if you use mods, this is gonna it will break your game, because I have I don't know, each year it grows a little bit. I have so many people with different platforms, different types of gaming rigs playing this. So it's hard to believe that certain crashes happen. I take it with a grain of salt. I'll listen to it, but I'll take it with a grain of salt, because we've tested this so much that the issue you're describing just doesn't make any sense. So that's why I've been throughout development. I remind my followers, hey, you're free to mod. I don't care if you mod. Like, if you want to tweak the variables of that, just remember, when you're tweaking variables, you're messing with aside from like love points, switching variables early has other consequences, that some variables aren't just like, oh, I did this with this character, or I didn't do this with that character. Some of them are actually like load bearing foundations, or structures. If you knock one off, this is a perfect example. If you knock one off or knock one on, it's going to break something. Right now, a common bug that I see uh, is, so when you reach the free roams, there's a variable in there that happens, and basically it puts a game into what's it called? I think it just called it free roam mode, or story mode. No, yeah, story mode is toggled off, and basically, um, the game switches to a free roam state where like you could just do anything. And then once I get the music, room back up, because I used to do this before back in chapter one, and I think you have a music question there, so I'll save that music story for after. But there used to be a feature in chapter one and two where when you get into free roam mode and story mode is flipped off, you can change the music and you can create your own playlist of what you want played as you're navigating this free roam. So that's why that exists. And so when people are flipping switches and flipping, they're flipping that free roam variable. And so when they reach that point in the story, they flipped it so the game doesn't know. Oh, I'm in free roam mode. So all the features that like the map, the lidar map doesn't come up and like that, and all that other, fun the stuff that makes the free roam functional, because people are you know blindly flipping switches that they don't know anything about, just because it has either a character's name or something they think, oh, that must be important, so I'll flip it. So I give those kind of warnings out to my followers. So having done all that leading up to this latest release, I cut zero almost. I would say like there was like one or two bug reports compared to like previously, where there was like numerous bug reports. Most of them were just false positive because someone's using a mod. But again, my stance isn't. I mod myself in other games. Like I give so many examples like Baldur's Gate, Skyrim. I'm always modding those kinds of games just to fit it how I want to play. So I have no problem with people modding games. It's just be knowledgeable of how when something happens, I know it most likely was the result of my mod. And then sometimes the fix isn't even taking the mod out, because sometimes I've done, in my modding experience with games like Baldur's Gate, you take a mod out and it still breaks because something in a save file is now cached into your game. So you have to do even more further cleaning, to sometimes even as much as completely reinstalling the game, like wiping the game out. But the thing about Steam users is it has cloud saves on there. So if you delete a save, the cloud saves is going to throw it back in there. So your injected or your variable flipped save will get brought back even though you delete it. So there's a lot of like things you have as you're modding things, whether it's a VN or a game. There's these things you have to keep track of mentally, because you're doing these things. Like I'm not a mind reader. Developers aren't mind readers. We don't know what you're doing that causes issue. So to that's kind of where I am at.
Yeah, I would only throw that with Artemis, I think. So I would came on Steam, I think either in 2023 or 2024, and I have save files from that day. They don't work anymore. When I try to load them, they just throw the widescreen like
Yeah, and I'm
the
glad you
RAM.
brought that up too, because excuse me. Um as I become, I wouldn't say more proficient in Ren'Py, but as I start understanding how it works, um
Just maybe mention what is Ren'Py for people.
oh yeah, so Ren'Py is the platform that I would say 99% of these AVNs, or even just regular VNs too, are developed on. It's basically just, it's a fork of Python. You really don't need to know Python, really, to be honest. It's all simplified like code structure, and the documentation is so simple that you can just look at it, and then what you want to do, look at that. Oh, I want to show an image. Go in the documentation, image. Boom. That's the line of code you need to have for image. I want to have dialogue. Boom. That's the code that you want to do for dialogue. So, um, and the thing is, and in my understanding of, so I'm not like Tom is the developer of this of Ren'Py. So he would probably have a better explanation of this, if this is even the right explanation. But because for the longest time, my saves, my old, like I never had frequent save issues now, but here we are 7 chapters later. Game saves are becoming more and more frequent, and the thing is, yeah, there sometimes it is an issue with the developer if you go back and change a significant amount of code. Like, dialogue shouldn't be an issue. Changing an audio track shouldn't be an issue. It would just say, hey, this is missing, or just no audio at all. We'll just play for that scene until you reload the scene, like from the beginning to where that scene starts. Then it'll catch the new code. But unless you're deliberately like really making significant changes to a code, you shouldn't be getting those in general. But the way
Yeah, maybe
Ren'Py,
I can just throw in there, at least
yeah,
from what I've noticed, even when there is the white screen, which is like an error screen,
yeah,
it allows you to ignore or roll back, which
mhm,
oftentimes, because of the way Ren'Py is structured, it's like just a long code. It allows you
right.
to sort of like forward to the next scene. So even when a scene is broken, oftentimes you can skip it, go back, and change things.
Yeah, and those are the nice ones to have. They're still annoying as a player. I understand that when they happen, so I try to fix those quick when they do happen. So the next push has the fix. But those ones are nice because but some people don't know. They just see an error and they just like, oh my god, like error, and then whatever. But yeah, if you hit ignore, you usually can just skip past it. It is still an issue that will be nice to be reported, because then we can go fix those, and then that won't happen again, or it shouldn't. Something shouldn't be happening. So whatever. But sidebar again, that also comes into play of knowing the difference of, is this a real bug or did my mod do something? And so I do got to insert that into there. But for the most part, yeah, hitting ignore will go past it. So if it is an issue that if you didn't mod, and that popped up, yeah, please report it to the game you're playing and let the developers know that that happened. But there are also, when you load up a save and it does say the I forget the context, but the verbiage, but it says something along the lines of couldn't find a place to roll back, and therefore your save can't load. So those ones are a little bit harder, and no, it's not developers fault entirely, because what happens is each time you push an update, um, what happens is, because when you open up the folder of the AVN or VN you're playing, it has game exe, and then I think a Ren'Py folder or Ren'Py folder. And that Ren'Py folder, we don't touch. We don't mess with it. It exists because of the compiling of the game when you get it ready for release. So what happens is Ren'Py, once you're done with an update, Ren'Py, you hit distribute, or I forget what the thing is called, but it starts compiling the update, including everything, and organize it however you just structure it, organize it. So what's happening is it's kind of like messing with it's regenerating that Ren'Py folder, um, and I'm not gonna say again. This is why I said Tom will probably have a better explanation of why this happens. But from my understanding, when you every time you recompile it, you're changing code. You're not changing code. The compiler is changing code to reference the new additions of the RPY files, which is the update files that you just created for whatever chapter is coming out or episode or whatever. So it's it the save errors is not something that um, that is fully the developer's fault, because each time you compile a new because case in point, I never touched ever after releasing chapter one. I have never touched it, but some people have reported that with the new update, when a new update comes out, um, they have sometimes their chapter saves from chapter one break, and it's like, well, I never touched chapter one, so that's kind of what made me go into that rabbit hole of like trying to figure this out. And there is a way though, because this chapter, this latest release, chapter seven, kind of shed some hope on that. Clayment, he's on Discord. He actually brought to my attention that wrote a script that saves most saves. So there is a way, knowing that now that I know that exists, there's a way to like, I want to say fix it. Maybe it may not be 100%, but we don't. Well, I shouldn't say we, but I don't develop things with the intent of your game saves breaking. Like that's the worst thing that could happen. So and throughout this development, I'm gonna try to either work with him, or if he's too busy, I'll try to figure it out myself, looking at his code and see what he did, and then try to implement it into Artemis. And then when it comes to beta, just have two versions. Like, hey, if your game, if I'll ask my testers, if your saves don't work, try this version of it and let me know, and then kind of narrow things down, because it's a slippery slope. Like, we're not intending to do, like, some people get really like, and I understand it, because like some of these games are really long at this point. And so it's like, oh, my game saves broke, so I got to play all the way to what it is. So it's like it's a hit or miss. It's like, it's nothing that we're doing deliberately. Like, I don't think Tom's vision for Ren'Py was to have these episodic releases. So when you're done with an AVN or a VN and you release it, you know um, the save issues wouldn't really be a factor anymore at that point, unless someone like releases a patch later on that like fixes any kind of like weird rare bug that someone found. But it's not like our intention is to screw anybody's game saves. That's just I think that's just a flaw of like Ren'Py and the compiling thing. But at least in my camp, I want to say that I do have plans to like look at Claimant's code and see if we can like build upon it to make it a little bit more. It's a really good, like, he said I had like a 99% accuracy, which it seems like most saves did work. There are a few saves that didn't, but for the most part, most of them reported that piece of code saved some of their saves from not loading. So this space, we as developers are, each year we get more and more developers, more and more talented people, and we share things amongst each other. So hopefully the more brains we get into this, the better that we can like streamline this. Like, things are evolving constantly. Like Drifty, he released I wouldn't call it a launcher, it's more of like a downloader for his game. He has me and Stone Fox on there as people to try it out with him. But I've been really busy, so I haven't had a chance to really look at it. But yeah, it's not a launcher. It's literally just a downloader. If you could launch the game from there, but the sole purpose of it is just to download your update without having it in the style of Steam, without having to like um go through Mega or Gigapixel or File Share, whatever. All these other like file share programs. These are still directly from the developer, and you don't have to worry about you know these sites or whatever that you find we host these links from, because some people will just not like going to a random site for a link. So I haven't tested it myself yet, but from what I've seen, it works, and it works well. Minus, it's still in the infant stage, so it has like some minor bugs, but like I said, a lot of brains are coming in, and in this AVN space or in development space. So hopefully one of us will figure out this game save issue, and we can at least have that one win for everyone, both developers and readers.
Although I would say for myself with the saves, when a new book or chapter releases, I have to
Mm,
replay through the whole game because I don't remember the
that's
last
true
time I
too.
played it. So, okay, one question that I meant to ask and probably
Yeah.
should have asked much earlier. Why adult visual novel? At the start, you mentioned graphic novels. Of course,
Mhm.
with Ren'Py, we also have the normal visual novels without the adult aspect. So, um, why why adult visual novels?
I think that idea got seeded with when because I was a console player for the longest time, and then I went to PC, and then one of my first PC games that I played was Dragon Age Origins, and the idea of like visual storytelling through video games was seeded like with Metal Gear, like back when that game released. I think it was like 90 something, 98 maybe, I forget. But when I played Dragon Age Origins, I was like, man, such a great such a great experience to just you have this overarching story, and then you have like these companions that you can befriend or romance. And then of course when you had those scenes, being the games it was, you fade to black, blah blah blah. But at the time I didn't really pay much attention to it. But as I got older, um, and I discovered this platform of, I was like, wait a minute. So not thinking about like, because it's funny because it's like everyone has their own definitions of what an AVN is. It's like everyone's different definition of what an action movie is. I guess the consensus is if it has explosions, gunfights, or whatever, then it's an action movie. But at AVN, it's like everyone has their own. Like they can't agree on what that means. It's like, oh, I don't want to read I don't want to read anything. I don't want to read all these verbose texts in my visual novel. I want that A in there. The A means, and again, people have their definitions of what the A is, and it's just like, well, it's like I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Everyone has their own opinion.
Just quickly, I'm
Go ahead.
laughing because
Yeah.
I've recently seen on Reddit somebody saying, "Is Summer's Gone even AVN?" Which is
Right.
the one that is brought up the most because it doesn't have. I wouldn't say it doesn't have any sexual scenes, but it doesn't have any. I guess we would say penetrative
The,
scenes.
right. The
Uh,
explicit stuff, which is again, it's like, I mean, I'm trying to like, I'm trying to think of like, what was it, soft core stuff that was like on I don't watch TV anymore, so I don't even know what channels are even there anymore. But they had the softcore stuff. So is that considered like? Well, obviously it's not because it has like TV MA and it's not as whatever. But by definition, what do you consider those softcore movies as? Do you still consider it porn even though there's no penetration, or do you just consider like an 18 plus movie? But what's the difference? Why not just call it a porno, even though it doesn't have penetration, but there still is two bodies that aren't usually typically shown in a typical medium. So the whole AVN like description, excuse me, it's you know again, no one can really agree on what it really is. You're always going to have three groups. It has to be porn. Group two, it has to have a mixture of it doesn't necessarily have to have explicit images, but there's enough to say, if you're showing genitalia, if you're showing whatever, you could consider that. And then there are people who just don't care. It's like it has adult stuff in there. It may be not what you want, but it is adult oriented stuff. So um it no one can really agree to what the AVN means. So like Artemis has explicit scenes in there, obviously, but some people might even argue that that's not enough, and that's fine. Like it wouldn't hurt me, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if someone didn't call Artemis an AVN, because my goal is I want to tell a story, an overall, like how I describe Dragon Age, an overarching story with all these characters in it that have romance, like I don't think I think I want to say that the characters aren't even the focus, even though they're really fleshed out. They aren't the focus of the story. Like the overall story is the focus. Artemis is the focus. um she's one of the protagonists. She's the title character of the story. um so back to your question, why an AVN for Artemis. One, I saw uh Dragon Age. I like that aspect of romancing your companions, the characters, the friends you make along the way. And so and then obviously I don't have to like pan away when you get to that point of a relationship with that character. You can just show it without having a, you know, censor it out or whatever. I mean, you could, but you know, at the same time you don't have to in this case. And so I was like, well, I like writing stories, I like creating art, I like you know, coding. And so it was the trifecta for me. It was like almost like I wouldn't say my calling, but you know, like I said, way back in high school, everything kind of just converged into like, you know, this is what I should have been doing. I guess like when I first saw that dude, that V-Day Games website, it should have clicked then, but it didn't, to make something then instead of waiting till now. But you know, back then I didn't have what I have now. Like computers weren't like a gaming rig. Everyone almost everyone has a gaming rig now, or you can still even do it off a laptop even, render something. When I was in high school, I remember spending a weekend rendering an entire weekend rendering a 30-second animation. Um, and now a 30-second animation takes me like a few hours. So, you know, technology has definitely caught up to where we can do this comfortably, um, using our gaming rigs. And so, you know, it kind of just, everything kind of just was like, it almost feels like something was just telling me to do this, start doing this a long time ago, and to the point where just like it had to like throw it into my face. Like this is, dude, this is what an AVN is. It does the trifecta of what you've been doing these last several years, your almost your entire life, basically, of like creating, coding, writing. So it's like, oh, okay, let me. And then I did my first one. I didn't, you know, I honestly didn't think it would be like, I didn't really didn't think people will like catch on to it the way it did. So I really do appreciate like the attention that people have gotten from it, and you know, supported me for as long as they have, because you know, as a writer or as a creator in general, like, you know, to have something to, for people to appreciate what you've put work into is always nice. Obviously there's people who like, you know, who, you know, there's always going to be, I'm not saying something specific, but I'm just saying in general, in human history, there's always someone who's like trying to make a quick buck. You know, we have the you know, way back in like Renaissance days, where, you know, they have the what do they call those, the snake oil dealers. There's always going to be those kind of people who just want to put out something simple, something low effort. But then you got people who are very passionate about what they do, putting out their work. So, you know, it's always nice to, you know, when people appreciate the work. Like we don't need we don't need glazing, but you know, just, I really enjoyed your update. Is, you know, all that. I think I can speak for all developers. Is what we would like to hear.
Um, all right, let's continue with this question that came out a bit earlier when we talked about AI, and and there is something that came out, I think, with that, and it's the backlash against AI. So, I guess a question for you: have you experienced any of that? You are having this sort of AI Android, or rather, we could call it. Have you
Yeah.
seen any sort of maybe new kind of hate coming towards broadly AI?
Like towards Artemis or in
Yeah,
general?
yeah, towards Artemis. Like, did and
Um,
yeah,
Not really. I'm pretty. That's the thing. I like my devlogs. I'm very open about what I do and what's happening. Like, excuse me. Um, there was one moment for chapter 7. I was a little like, but I had already established before that I use generative AI images for like posters, um, background props, like billboards, what's on TV, things like that. Because I remember chapter 7, I was working on the scene where the girls were, you know, having pizza and watching TV movie. Well, like I got to that point where I was like, I'm showing the TV, and the TV is being shown in a couple shots too. So I was like, fuck, I do not want to. Like I was again like, when development taking a year long, I get stressed, and I get stressed when I think about like, oh crap, something else has to be done, more work has to be done for this scene. So I was like, oh right, that's right. I use because my concern was now I have to close out what I'm doing, fire up DAS, pick up characters, pick up an environment, put it together, render this out, and then once that's done, then come back, reopen the scene I was working on, come back to it because it's really hard for me to work out of order. So it's like, you know, while that's working and rendering, I do have to like find something else to do that's not like um, rendering, whether it's coding or reviewing the script or whatever. Sometimes even just fixing like excuse me, not fixing, but I'm like creating outfits for the next scene or whatever. So it's not downtime per se, but it is annoying to have to stop my momentum, go create this throwaway scene that just to have it on the picture on the TV playing. That's gonna be irrelevant to the story for the most part. Unless it's like relevant, then yeah, then I'll have to take over as producing something manually for it. But if it's just like a movie or TV show or whatever they're watching that has no relevance to what's going on, then yeah, I'm gonna use generative AI to produce something on the scene because no one's gonna be even being gonna care what that is. It's irrelevant to the scene. Like I want to focus on creating the scene itself. If there's a poster I need to replace, or if there's a TV show they're watching or a movie, just throw it on generate. Just I am explicit what I want on there. So like when I was doing that, I was like, okay, rom com, offense environment, give me it, boom. A couple shots later, they show the TV again. I didn't want it to be the same shot again. So I was like, okay, keep those two characters and keep those two characters in mind. Put them in this situation in a car in downtown traffic. Boom, got my image without having to like stop what I was doing or whatever to create this throwaway render just to put on a TV. So, that's my stance, and that's something I've always told. I've always been open with my followers about that. That's where I use AI. And I think you have a music question, so I'll save music on there for later because um, there was a whole saga of music and the AVNs. But as far as AI and art goes, no backlash really because again, I've been open about it. I was a little concerned with Chapter 7 on that pizza scene because I don't know. I don't like using it, but not for the reason that most people don't like AI art. I just, I like having control of what I create is my stance on it. So, when you're working with AI, you're like just forcing so much to happen. It's like you want something to be rendered to a T, or most people do, at least I do. So when you're doing prompts, you're struggling, and then you get to the point where like, okay, well, that's good enough. So I'll just do it that way. So then that's just not how I work. When I have an idea or a vision, that's what I want. I don't really want to settle. That's why I often outsource my 3D models to like Turbo Squid or I forget the other website I go to purchase assets from. They come as OBJs. I'll convert them, retexture them, throw them into the scene, and boom, I have the prop or set that I want instead of having to deal with whatever is available on the DAS store to download. And um, so yeah, I'll always be creating the renders just because um, one, that's my passion. Like I'm not gonna give my art unless it's someone else, like another human being, or we can collaborate on what a scene's gonna look like, or come or the sequence of a scene's gonna come out to be. But AI, it just doesn't. It's just not me. You're bound to so many things with using generative AI. That's why I just like what posters, TVs, billboards, you know, mock things that are in the background. That's about the extent that you'll see AI in me, unless things change, which I really doubt they don't, because they will, because like I said in the past or in this interview already, that creating art is who I am. Like I'm always gonna want to create art, and that's not just my fascination of art in general. That's just me as an artist wanting to create. and there's a big difference in that, I think.
What do you think broadly about sort of AI in generally, the AVN community? I've seen some, uh, I've seen at least one game that I think was like fully AI made,
Yeah,
that like renders where I think every render was animated, and it was because of AI. It clearly had, a lot of AIs have this sort of like graphical feel, like you can sort of like
yeah,
tell.
yeah,
Um, and especially on the other side, also things made in Dust 3D also have like you can tell when something is like an alien,
yeah.
or the characters keep repeating and things like that.
Right.
Um, so what do you think? You have a certain philosophy how you use it, but how do you think broadly, AI in AVNs? How do you think it's? Where do you think we currently are? Any sort of thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing. I do understand how people feel, in the sense of like, when I first started this, I wasn't the greatest coder. I still don't consider myself the greatest coder, but at least at this point now, I've been doing it for so long. Like, I've branched out a lot in my coding and I've gotten better with it. Um, a lot better with it, I think, to the point where I can like catch things, or identify things when someone reports something. I'm like, all right, I already know what that's going to be, or I already kind of have an idea of what's going on at that point. But art is such a, it's such a, you know, anyone can learn to draw, but you know, drawing good is a whole different scope. And so I do feel for people who have the idea that they want to do, they want to write something, but they just don't have the artistic ability to. And so they want to just rely on AI art to do it. But I think because me and my friend, we have this. We're both artists. We're both really into coding. We're both really into game development. The only reason why he's not in my team is just because he's married with kids, so like he just doesn't have the time to, you know, do this, especially seeing how much time I invest into it just as myself. Um, but we do talk about a lot, especially now, with AI being the way it is. I think that it's almost like we joke about this. It's almost like a new form of racism towards AI. Like in this day and age, it's like everyone the moment something says AI, it's like boom, AI slap, hate it, don't want it. And it's like I kind of want to ask the question like, well, what it is exactly like. For me, I love AI as a tool, but as I've stated already, and I've already established my passion for creating, I would never use it for to replace myself, my own creativity, because I have a vision and I'm very specific about that vision. So I don't want to have to rely on a tool to create what I want specifically, because there's always going to be like you're going to waste more time trying to fine tune the art as opposed to just creating it. For someone like me, like someone who is already up there with knowing how to create a scene in the 3D space and how to create the art and the lighting and all that stuff. Like for me, and developers, other developers who are aesthetically like great at what they do, um, it's easy um, for us to just go and do it ourselves rather than just generate it, because you're going to be fighting so much with it, and then the setup for it and whatever. The argument about and it's funny because like I did touch on this a little bit in Artemis chapter 6. The argument about how it's stolen or whatever, it does make me chuckle a little bit because a lot of art these days is stolen anyways. I mean, there's a lot of developers out there, AVNs too, who a lot of the assets they didn't purchase.
Oh,
You Google it.
maybe just to throw in, when we say
Sure.
stolen, we mean that and I don't know to what extent this is true and which specifically, but that the
Mhm.
language models were trained on,
Right.
art or text. They didn't have a copyright. Or you could even make a case because it is like a novel technology, right? Like, do you have a copyright to your thing that it cannot be used for language model is, I think, somewhat of an interesting question. But that is the argument people make, that it's immoral because the language models were trained on stolen
Mhm.
art, or not
Yeah.
even necessarily stolen, but of somebody else's art they didn't have explicit
Right.
permission on.
Right. And that's a great point, and that's very true. And I do see that as well. And then the to play devil's advocate though, humans do the same thing. We just, we're just not machines. We how many people have, you know, I'm trying to think of, like, I haven't done art school in a long time. Haven't drawn in a
Michelangelo's
long
David or
time.
something.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there are artists that we reference that we will look at, um, and we ourselves will, as artists, those who do art, like Studio Ghibli. Like, how many people out there who will do a Studio Ghibli type of art because they reference that art, and now they make profit. Um, you go on Fiverr or Instagram, or who are doing commissions, um, Studio Ghibli inspired art, and that's the key word too: inspired versus uh, um, just training off of it. It's very gray area because it's like, stripping it down to its base foundation of just learning in general. Like, take out, I was inspired by, the artist for Metal Gear, and he has such a very distinct, like, really cool art style, concept art. He does amazing concept art. Like, the art book for Metal Gear, I love it so much. Um, and for me as a person to just, you know, look at his art and study it, and then, start making my own, like, commissions, saying, here's my art now. And I got to the point where I don't even reference him anymore, or maybe I do. But you can tell who I was inspired by, just by on who I train. So it's a very gray area, because it's like, yeah, these AI art model, or these LLMs are being trained. Um, and again, I touch on this same method with Artemis, and how she's basically training herself on the different sorority girls in chapter 7. Basically what she's doing. Um, and it's very gray area, because it's like, you know humans are doing the same thing. Everyone, even just, knockoffs in general, like, and yeah, that gets backlash too. Oh, that's just a knockoff of that. But um but I don't know. It's a weird thing to really, like, and I'm just being very critical. Like, I'm trying to, like, see both sides of it, because I don't want to just be one mindset of, like, AI slop stolen art. That's my decision. I want to, like, really take a step back, and then really analyze it, because um, as someone who's already stated that they won't use, like, generative AI art in anything really. Like, the only time I think I would ever actually use it is, if I'm gonna DM a D&D game on a virtual tabletop, where I need to constantly create art
Hmm.
for the icons, the monsters, the characters, whatever. Anybody who's done a DM before knows that when you introduce a character, it's like, sometimes it's just like a generic token, but it's nice to just, you know, uh, boom, just do it, just generate something, and then slap it in there, up there, and then boom, here's the new NPC that you're creating. So in that context, it's super useful, because you're just with your friends, you're not selling this thing, um, and it's a tool doing, I want to say its job, but doing a job. Um, and to that same, again, devil's advocate, I for my character, last campaign I played with my friends, I hired someone to draw my character, and then I had my DM use that as the token. So, you know, again, just so people know where I'm coming from, where I stand. Like, I still prefer hiring someone to do the work to create something my vision. If I like to like high fantasy art, I couldn't draw that. I can draw, but I couldn't draw like to that degree, like really intricate looking characters in this high fantasy setting. So I hired someone to do it. And I think I paid, I don't forget, like $400, and it was a really detailed drawing too. I don't know if you, I don't know. I'll probably send it to you just to have it on there as a reference if you want to see that character. But again, it's a fine line to walk because yeah, yeah, stolen art, and then there are people who are, I guess where the agreement with everybody is using it to profit off of it. Like, you could make the argument, it's a gun, guns don't kill people. People do. I'm myself am looking to own a gun, so it's like, am I a killer? No, I'm not. I'm using it to defend myself and my home if whatever happens. But uh, people look at gun, or they hear gun, or they see a gun. It's the same concept I gave with in chapter 7 with when Kendra was talking to Candace. People see a gun, they see a knife. Which one is more terrorizing to the person? They're going to see a gun, but people can do just as much damage with a knife, is what she was trying to say. And so with AI art, using it as a tool, I think is good. Using it to profit, though, um, I guess it depends on the extent of your. If you're just letting it just do everything for you, and you're just trying to get something out there to make a quick buck because people see that AVNs are good, can be good sources of income. Um, you know, you're no better than someone who is making a cheap product, a cheap knockoff of someone and trying to profit. We've seen so many times where someone makes an STL of a 3D print. They've created it. They measured it. They've done the measurements. They've done everything, and then now you see it online, available, that they're selling it on like Alibaba or AliExpress or whatever. Or selling, basically someone stole their STL and selling it somewhere else, or they're printing the product itself and selling it elsewhere. So it's like it's when it gets to that part that it's just like, you know I guess what I'm trying to say, just do the work. um do the work, put in the effort to do it. AI is a tool. Don't let it steer your creativity. Don't let it drive your um you know ambition, or just make you become lazy about it. And then, like I said, I use it for background stuff because I don't want to stop what I'm doing just to create a throwaway poster or whatever. But to my stance, I see it as a tool, nothing more. You know, it's if we want to get technical, it's no different from me hiring someone who's gonna say, draw me this poster to put it in the background of an AVN, and I wanted the style of Ghibli, Studio Ghibli, and they're basically going to copy that style. I'm going to pay them the money. Studio Ghibli's going to get that money. I'm going to get the art. So it's a really weird. I don't know. It's a really weird thing because I do see the argument of stolen style and stolen art and copyright and all that, but at the same time, it's like, it's how you use it, I guess. If you're using it for profit, purely for profit, not even like for your to help your creativity in the sense of like, um as a prop or something. It's such a hard, like, it's I don't I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's not as simple as the trigger response that most people, I shouldn't say everyone, most people have when they see AI slop. Because yeah, you do kind of identify it as AI slop, but at the same time, it's like, okay, like, I guess what's the context of this? Is like, are they selling it, or are they just doing it just to be funny? what's the context of it? Because I don't. When I see someone, when someone posts an AI art, you know, okay, I'll nod, whatever. Someone posts something, let's say Displate. I think that's the website. Yeah, Displates. If someone posts something that a picture frame that's clearly AI generated, then you're like, okay, one, you're being lazy. Two, what the fuck? It's a weird response because um, I do see both sides. And I'm not going to say I know where I stand, but that I've explained where I stand because I can't really say in one word where I stand on it. Like, and that's just my point. Was I guess what I'm trying to make is, you know, it depends on who's using it and how. Well, I shouldn't say who's using it. It depends on how you're using it and what for. Is where it becomes the I shouldn't say hate, but like the disagreement would should come into play. Like we shouldn't um, be so fast to be like, oh my god, AI slop, blah blah blah. Like really, just take a step back. If no one's gonna be like, if someone's just posting it just to shit post or whatever, fine. If someone's trying to like say, hey, here's my new product, the the text is AI slop, the AI the image is AI slop. Everything about it is there's nothing that has any personal, like not personal touch, but like just the essence of a product that someone put their effort into it because yeah, AI is no effort basically. Creating art, creating anything, it's a lot of effort. And people who try to get it, I guess my issue is people who try to like um use it and then create just use it just to create a profit off of it without putting any heart and soul. Like if someone wrote it, like if I haven't played anything really, um I haven't really played any games other than like AAA games, whatever. But so I haven't really seen any kind of new AVNs myself. But if someone put out there that was like a really good story that they wrote, that you can tell that they wrote, it just has AI art because they can't find an artist. Because yeah, it's hard. It's I know how hard it is to find a partner. If I've just got lucky, I can do the art myself. But there are some people who have the story, the ability to write the story, but they just can't do the art. And we always put ourselves in situations where, well, I can hire someone. Well, that person, they may not be able to hire someone. So, but their story is really good. They just want to, they want the art to complement it. So, it's a hard thing to really balance because there's so many variables um, involved in this decision because it's there's always like just like I said, back to the knife thing. It's like there's so many variations of a knife, and people use it as a tool, but people also use it as a weapon. So I guess really think about that when you're well, it's not that deep, but still, like I guess just what I'm trying to say is next time you say AI stuff, really think about the context of it before you start like you know piling up on it. I guess I don't know. Long-winded answer. I'm sorry about that. I'm just gonna say that when it comes to AI, just I see what we're saying. Just think a little bit more critically about it. As I guess is what I say, and that goes for everything in this world. Just don't jump on the same conclusion as everyone. Like think for yourselves a little bit and really do some thinking about it. Some have, but sometimes it is going to be AI slop, and you're right to call it out. But at the same time, really think about what it is you're looking at and what it is you're assessing it before you really try to like just stomp on it.
So moving on, you mentioned couple of different developers throughout this interview.
Mm-hmm.
How collaborative would you say generally the AVN developer community is? I think previously you mentioned that originally you were looking for somebody else to work with you on Artemis. So far I think I've interviewed only solo developers, although there is possibly one in the pipeline with two people that I'll be talking about.
Nice.
Um, uh, but yeah, how do you go through that?
I mean, we're all pretty. I mean, honestly, like everyone I've interacted with has been like super nice. Like, I made so many friends in this community that we're all pretty like chill. We'll hang out, cross paths with each other, and shoot the shit. It's how I met like some of my fellow developers. Like the first person that I met was Drifty from Leap of Faith. He when I when I released my game, like I again when I came into this space, I knew nothing about a lot of things. My introduction to AVNs was not what most people's were. Mine was to that website VD Games whatever, and that was my introduction. And then so when I got into the space, I knew nobody. I knew nothing about the community. I came in fresh, and so I had no idea that I had used the same model as Drifty. But he's an example of like just someone who was cool about it, and he and to this day we still run with the joke sometimes um, about our MCs having the same model, slight differences, but there it is after the same base model. um, and then of course like uh, all the collabs I've done. Well, I've only done two collabs so far. One with Drifty, and then the next one with we'll call him Stu, but his developer name is STWA Dev. He does Unbroken. He's the current one that we're working with. The other ones that I have down the line are Stone Fox, Kent and Stoya. Um, the other one I work with very often with is obviously Puggy. And then that extends off to Lemon, Taco, Meat Shield. Um, uh, Another one recent person was Batman. His name is, I forget his name. Um, he does Moonlight. Oh my god, I'm really bad with names, but yeah, Batman Sid, I think his name is. We've only recently met, started interacting. So many people, like we've been just yeah, you're gonna get some catty people, but I haven't met them yet, or at least I haven't interacted with them myself. But uh, all the developers so far that I've interacted with have been super cool. We're very collaborative. When I approach them for something, the idea is usually more of an idea, not a lot of people in the collaborative sense of like crossovers and stuff. A lot of people like to think that it's all about promoting another person's whatever, which is probably true. I wouldn't know because a lot of my collaborations involve actual storylines in my story. So if like when I came to Drifty with my idea, the original idea was this DJ King gonna be the headliner for the Halloween party. But I was being quiet about it this entire time, and in the story, like she kept saying, "I'm not gonna do it," blah blah blah, and then boom, she does it. But then, as I played Leap of Faith, I was like, that would be pretty cool if we just didn't have her, we also had Lexi in that storyline too, and not just like spot and show up. So that's why like I had them show up a few different times in the story before their big scene. So Drifty was really cool about it. Stu's been really helpful. And me and him working on the scene together for the crossover for Artemis. It's really cool. Like we've come up with a nice way to do it because my when I was writing scenes for Lexi, I was just like I was a little not stressed out, but like concerned if I was capturing the voice right. Drifty said was cool, so that was good. But what was nice about Stu was I was like, hey, this is the scene how I want the scene to go. Can you write this in Amrit's voice? And he was like, yeah, sure. So a couple of weeks later, he sent me a draft. And yeah, so the talking to everyone so far that I've interacted with has been like super cool. Like we're super approachable, and we're all trying to do this. Um, we're all trying to do this. We're all just trying to create art and do all this stuff. So it's been um, it's been fun. Like this community has been so awesome, and the developers that I've met along the ways has just been so great. Like there's drama, but I wouldn't know what the drama is. I keep to myself for the most part, and then I do have a there is a Discord. There's actually there is a Discord where all the devs kind of just like we're a melting pot of devs of just it's a super secret dev Discord that I probably shouldn't be saying. I'm probably gonna be gunned down now. But no, we all hang out there. We all like bullshit. It's honestly mostly just for us to just kind of unwind because this does get stressful sometimes with some of the things that we had to deal with as developers. But it's pretty fun. And then there's another Discord I hang out with, Meet Shields usually. And that's where my core group's at, and it's kind of like movies. Like you see movies where it's like you see the same characters, and so they all have their clicks. So it's like it is pretty funny because that's how it is here too. It's like you kind of see the circles that everyone has, but all in all, it's like circles are not like most people in this space are pretty approachable. Like we're all pretty cool with each other, and like we kind of bullshit and unwind at each other, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Like we're a bunch of cool dudes, approachable.
Yeah, so just so people know, if you post some shit about AVNs on Reddit, you know which Discord that those posts are going on. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, you mentioned the cameos and crossovers, and that's always something interesting to see. I'm trying to. I think I played Leap of Faith before I
Mhm.
played Artemis, and yeah, so you have crossover, and then I played Chasing Sunset, which Jay is the character that shows up in both of those. And also the first interview I did was with the developer, the Naughty Captain from Somerset, and I think Jay
Yeah.
also shows up there. Um,
Mhm.
so broadly, this has been called, I think I've seen the idea floating around of Lexiverse,
Yeah.
the universe where Demand from Leap of Faith,
Yeah.
a big pop singer, a bunch, and there's a bunch of different AVNs. She either shows up or is mentioned.
Mhm.
So is there anything there beyond sort of just simple collaboration? Like are those worlds actually connected? Is this some type of adult visual novel universe, or is this just fun cameos and
It depends on who you're talking to. I can't speak for the other developers, but I know for Artemis, it's strictly everything that happens in here in Artemis is contained. Um, you know, all just because I had it, Lexi, obviously, quote unquote, the canon ending in Artemis is, you know, you as a Leap of Faith MC choose Lexi. That doesn't necessarily happen. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean it's canon for like the core universe of Drifty's Leap of
Mhm.
Faith story or universe. It's just what I chose for mine. So everything that happens, it's self-contained in my world. Everything that happens is going to be, unless like the author does, unless the developer, also has some liberties. Like I said, I'm actually giving the script to Stu, and he can write what he wants, whether it's going to be canon or not. In his, I told him he can do whatever he want in mine because it's going to be contained. So no, whatever happens in Artemis doesn't necessarily happen in the other games. Whatever happens in Chasing Sunset doesn't necessarily happen in Artemis. I know people got confused a little bit when they saw Artemis in Chasing Sunset. This was in chapter three. No, I forget which chapter this the crossover for them occurred in, but um, they wanted to use Artemis. So I was like, okay, sure. And they were like, okay, so and this is the part that this is definitely book one era. because I was really trying to, at this point, I was really struggling, like, what I really wanted to do for Artemis's voice. So when Stoya was asking me, like, what's her thing, was like, well, if you're trying to do what you're doing, we can't exactly do what I had envisioned already, because two different. And then that's also, I was like, well, you know what, do whatever you want. Like, obviously, let me see it and give my blessing, but the worlds are contained the way I see it. Like, whatever is happening there isn't necessarily going to happen here. So that's not to say that certain characters aren't going to show up, because yes, they're the expo, we are going to see some characters there too. That's coming in chapter 9. So, but to answer your question, it's self-contained. In my world, it's self-contained. So if you see something happening here, just keep in mind that that doesn't necessarily mean it's canon. I know. I remember seeing one comment. I forgot where it was. I think it was Steam. Some dude got like pissed because uh, he got pissed because he was like, "Oh, I love the Artemis story, but what pissed me off was uh, I didn't choose Lexi as my love interest, and so that upset me." It's like, I don't know, it gave me a good laugh, but yeah, you get those kinds of like situations where like people think like it's all of a sudden it's all canon across the board, like it's a ripple effect of all the AVN or all the stories. So it's I can only, like, again, I can only speak for myself. For anyone who wants to reiterate that, Artemis, things that happen in Artemis stay in Artemis. It's self-contained. Nothing comes out of there. So people are like following a specific storylines, also because the developer of that story okayed it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's canon in their universe. Just like when Artemis starts talking the way she talks in Chasing Sunset, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's already at that state. That means obviously that part of the story is happening at a different time. So, and that's when I was like writing the story. That's why I kind of, in chapter 1, I had dates, I think, and like calendar dates. And so when I did the when I started doing the crossover, because when I at that when that first crossover I did, I was like, what did I say? I was really trying to like, I was trying to like create, like, not create a universe, but I was trying to keep things
Chrono-
aligned.
Chronological, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, because when Drifty sent me his draft for when he was using DJ Kink, he was like, then Kendra kisses, jumps on James, his MC, and kisses him, and I was like, that's pretty funny. But I thought about it, I was like, well, wait a minute, it doesn't work chronologically, because at that point in time, they're still friends. Um, and also had to like throw a couple pointers out to help him out, because to help salvage that, because I thought it was pretty funny too. So I want to keep it, but I want to like salvage it a little bit. So I was like, okay, we'll have her point out his tattoos. His eyes are different, and then when she clicks that this isn't her guy, quote unquote. Even though in that point in development for Artemis, they were still friends. I mean, even now they're still friends. Or chapter 8 is when the choice happens of with who you want your love interest to be. But that's kind of the thing I was trying to set earlier. Then I was like, well, this is gonna be really hard to do, because you're trying to adjust other storylines. So I still maintain I removed all the dates referenced in Artemis. I kept it that way, just keep it vague. But I stopped trying to mold crossovers to be canon, because I felt bad because Drifty wanted Drifty wanted to use Artemis again, or use Artemis for Euphoria, and I was like, well, she, because he gave me the draft, and I was like, well, at that state, she hasn't really been exposed to the public yet, and or let alone to be all in an island. And then I felt bad because he backpedaled, because I think he took it like as me saying no. I was just like, what I should have said was like, if you can just tweak some things like that, I should have said that, because no, I felt bad because I think he took it as me saying no to a crossover to him. But but yeah, I was trying to like just create a timeline, a continuity of events. But I just saw how difficult it was being, so I was like, I just scrapped it. And it's like at that point, I was just like, it's all self-contained. If a developer wants to say it's canon, that's up to them. But as far as Artemis, everything that happens in Artemis, it's self-contained.
I have to say, you kind of broke my heart saying that we are still friends with Kindra. I thought we're more than that at this point. Although I'm only kidding because I'm on the
Yeah,
Zelda train. So,
of course.
um, and well, mentioning both of those characters, I do wanna go into them. But since technically we haven't really talked about the story at all,
Mhm.
and we're still not really going to because there's at least one thing that you've alluded to a couple times. Music. How
Mhm.
do you think about music in your game?
Music plays a huge part, actually. Like when I'm writing stuff, um, especially action scenes, which we haven't even gone to. It's funny to say, because book 3 and 4 are going to be like really action oriented. But I think a lot about music, and I really love like soundtrack music, like music you'd hear from like just original soundtrack, original scores. I love that so much, and that helps me a lot with crafting scenes, and and it really puts me in the mindset, and then it really helps my mind like just shape the scene that I'm trying to create, and it, this is the part that really struck me a lot with music was it's hard when it comes to the implementing of it, because we've gotten our legs shot off so many times at this point, and by us I mean like de- developers as a whole. um, Back then, chapter book 1 era, it was so nice. Like I think everyone at the time was using Artlist, and their contract was a blanket contract. So like it was such a good deal for everybody. Basically, you sign up. I forget how much you pay a month. Uh, you have access to their entire library, and the
Uh,
songs are really like.
oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Uh, uh, I just got briefly lost of but a library of songs. Okay, like
Sorry, yeah,
you pay a
catalog.
subscription and you get a
Yeah,
copyright or you get a license to use.
exactly. It was a blanket contract to use everything in their catalog, all their soundtrack, anything that was available. It was, and then the book 1. I love the music for chapter 1 in particular, and that was all from Artlist. And then the great exodus, the music exodus happened when Drifty put his game in on Steam, and he got stopped at the DMCA because I think, and don't quote me on this, I think Drifty can confirm this, but I think what happened was because Drifty uses a lot of soundtracks from artists with like lyrics and stuff. So like some people were like trying to find music that like where can I find this artist, or I really love this song, where can I find it, blah blah blah. So they found one of the artists on YouTube, I think, and then what happened was they left a comment. Oh, I loved your song and this whatever. I think I can't remember if they called it the game or they just straight up called it Leap of Faith, or they called it like this AVN whatever. Anyways, I guess the artist or their manager saw that, and they found out that their song was being used in adult content, and they didn't like that, so they brought it. I'm assuming what happened at that point was they brought it to Artlist's attention, and Artlist changed their agreement, their contract, their usage, what you can use their content for, and they put it was very explicit, like adult oriented stuff, and it really just like shot the legs off of a lot of us, because a lot of us were around there, and at that time it was really simple. I mean, it was kind of easy to like
So
jump
was it
ship.
like a change for this website that this website said
The
no?
terms of use, I think what it was, like if you go on, like that's the thing,
Oh
they didn't
yeah,
send out an email.
but for this website that provided the copyright, they included that no longer you can use it for AVNs or
Yeah,
adult oriented
yeah,
content.
yeah, adult oriented content, and they changed it without telling us. So a lot of us were,
Oh,
if it wasn't for Drifty, like we would have known about it. Um, because it was a huge ripple effect because, um, like I said, the terms were great. Like you buy the subscription, as long as if you release that product that it was used in while that prescription is yours. No, it was if you used it within that prescription, regardless if it was released or not, that is yours to keep
mm,
forever to use again and again. So it was such a good contract to have, or such a good deal. So everyone was using it, and then they changed their terms of use to those restrictions, and we're like shit. So a lot of us were like kind of like, well, what do we do now? Because a lot of us have music in our games, and a lot of us using it from there. So me, I found I went to Epidemic Sounds, and they were a little bit strict, but not to the extent of Artlist. But eventually, all these companies started like being more explicit on what was not allowed, and so a lot of us kind of like, well, what do we do now? And then this goes back to your question of like, how do I choose the music? And then it was already hard enough trying to find it with these these catalogs, these libraries of music that these websites have. But because again, it goes back to how I was wanting to do things. I want things a certain sound or whatever. I want a certain beat or rhythm, and so I was bound to like whatever was available. But it got even more restrictive as all these websites started like just axing these the terms of use in adult content. And um I don't know what the consensus is these days. I don't know who's using what. I think in chat when I released book one on Steam, that's when I went into contract with oh my god, Universal Music. I forget the company's name. It's the Universal, like Universal Studios. They have a
mm,
website where um, they have a huge music library for their, I'm assuming their movies, and also, when they don't do, original scores they use from their catalog. Um, and the thing about that though is it's so expensive. Like, you think they, I mean, they are a business, so it's like, why would I think that? But anyways, they, to get a contract with them, it's like $2,500 a year. So, a lot of us are trying to, I don't know, again, I don't know what, I know Hook Sounds is another one that's popular that people go to. But as you start going to these more free websites, the quality of tracks starts to diminish. And I know a lot of people are going towards AI, or AI music. And with everything going on with the sound space, or with the music space with AVNs, it's like that's the only one that feels like you're not going to get some record company knocking at your door or sending you an email or whatever saying, hey, don't use this in our whatever, or we'll sue you. So it's like, you know I feel like that's that, even though everyone says whatever about AI, I think a lot of people are starting to be okay with AI music. And I'm thinking I might do that too. But I do have a friend who is making soundtracks. He's getting into music, so I might see what he can do. Because even hiring people, like I hired. Here's a frustrating thing too: is I hired someone. So in Artemis, there's a couple custom tracks. So like the base main menu track for Artemis. It's a piano theme. I hired a composer for that. He was gonna be my original composer. I was gonna hire for more music, but I didn't like how he didn't collaborate with me. He was like, "Okay, what do you want? Okay, go." And then like a day later, he brings me back and was like, "Whoa, whoa, where's the collaboration at?" It's like, I want more. Like let's talk about this. So he wasn't willing to do that, so I had to move on. But the track was great. I love the track. It's just that, you know, when it comes to more scenes, I can see this relationship not working out. So, and then I hired someone else to do and the Halloween party is another custom track that I hired someone, a composer, to do, and that was a hard one because I spent so much money on that because I hired a DJ to record the track for in the style of DJ Kink, and then I wanted lyrics because obviously Lexi is going to be in there. So okay, so now we needed to create lyrics. So I'd hire someone to create the lyrics. Then I hired someone else to sing it, and then finding the voice was the hardest part to it because a lot of these people, I don't want to be mean, but it wasn't like wasn't what I was looking for. So I had to release a track without the lyrics and just dump the songs. And so he didn't he the guy who did the tracks was like, you pay extra and then the track's yours. You don't have to reference me. You don't have to do anything. Blah blah blah. And then there's other artists who I hired for chapter 7 who are like, we'll do it for you, but pay extra because we don't want knowing what this is going to be, what their song is going to be used for. We don't want it to be. We don't want us to be attached to an adult like oriented game. So they're all right. So I had to pay extra to for the full rights and no mention of them. So it's getting to the point where it's like all the doors are closed at this point. So it's like, and everyone's kind of like nodding their heads to when I say that, I mean people who are usually against AI are not also kind of seeing how we're really like cornered into our options. So I'm thinking I might play around with some AI for chapter 8 and see how that goes and see what people say. Especially because I'm trying to get the music track back online for the on the main menu of the game. So if people like a track, they can look at it and then in the music room and then play it if they want, like whatever. And then if I ever do an OST, I can have that as a separate download. I don't have to worry about like rights or anything. I can just say, hey, if you like the music, here it is. These are all the tracks that are from Artemis. I can't do that with the current music I have right now because technically the Universal Studios and the other companies I've used it for just technically still own them, and I can't distribute them that way because that'd be illegal. So I'm thinking go the composer route, which would be pretty expensive, or go the uh, the AI music route, which will still be a little bit expensive, but not as much. So it's a weird situation that with music, a lot. I'm pretty sure if you ask any dev, you'll kind of get like a big sigh from them if they've been around since like that era. I would say specifically, or even now, because it's still hard now to find like good library of music to choose from for your music or for your AVN.
Yeah, music is usually big for me because, I start associating specific
Mhm.
tracks with specific AVNs, or now I even associate specific bands with AVNs, and um, uh, I love finding them. But
Yeah.
do you think there is like a, well, probably, but what do you think about the sort of like taboo with AVNs, if we go, back even to the start of the interview, the collective shout from Australia wanting to shut down games. Now, to be at least somewhat journalistic about it, they say they only target, incest games or games with minors, or those sort of things. But I've seen pretty much every AVN sort of getting hit in the crossfire. Um,
Yeah.
you have the music, and I think I even know the song that got cut from got removed from the Leap of Faith. And yeah, if
Yeah.
you go under that song in the comment section, the whole comment section is about Leap of Faith.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
that's
you have all those. mm, Do you think there is a chance to get away from it, or do you think there is always going to be a taboo? Um, Maybe not even with AVNs, but sort of adult-oriented content.
it's hard to say because everyone is so different. Like honestly, when I got the first round of like shock news of like, oh my god, they're coming after AVNs or they're coming after the adult stuff. At first, I was like, oh shit, that's me. Um, but now I've like, well, I mean, Artemis really isn't really even about that. So it's like, when you play it, when you read through Artemis, it's like, you know, they're there, but it's like it's not the integral part of the thing. But and when they are, you know, yeah, there is that one scene with Cassie. If you go that route in chapter 4, I think. Um, but that even that was like very tamed. um, but like I think people just don't want to be associated in general, and by people I just mean like these companies don't want to be associated with anything like that because they know the general consensus is going to be like, you know, you know, adult stuff bad, oh, excuse me, bad, um, you know, whatever. So you know, and there's always that argument of like people are just kind of like not oxymorons, but hypocrites because it's like, yeah, they say they won't associate with them, they'll distance from themselves from that, but behind the scenes, they, you know, that they're probably 10 times worse than what your AVN reader is into. Um, and yeah, it's a hard thing to say because it's like everyone's different. Like, you know, you take Artemis and you compare it to I don't know, whatever AVN out there who has like the crazy stuff. Uh, you know, stuff that goes even borderline, not borderline, that goes beyond the terms of fetishes. I'm talking about the really nasty stuff. It's like I do see a lot of people say that developers project a lot through their stories. Um, like they see, let's take my story for example. A sorority full of girls who are tattoos. He probably has a tattoo fetish, or he probably has a lot of tattoos himself. Well, no, I have zero. Funny enough, my dad was a tattoo artist. Yeah, but you know that wasn't the reason why. I just, you know, I had a new Kappa ink. Sororities usually like to use that, like playful with that ink, kind of like is a fun way to get into it, and then it's kind of fun to have one of the traditions that aren't so much traditions anymore be you get a tattoo once you get into the sorority. So that's kind of where it came. Like again, that's where a lot of the deep thinking of like the intricacies of my storytelling goes. It's not just slap it on because it's cool. It's usually there's like a little bit, there's some layers to it. So when it comes to uh your point, yeah, it is kind of concerning that you know, is it is because yeah, you're right. Like some people want to explore that narrative and tell a story that has that in it. Like for example, if you know, I'm trying to remember. It's been so long since Game of Thrones was out, but you know, they had a lot of sex scenes, and then some of those scenes, you know, were rape. And it's like, well, I mean, who knows what the fuck goes on in George Martin's head, but usually a scene that has that isn't. I mean, unless it is glorifying it, yeah, that is one thing to be worried about. But if the scene has like some sort of element of this character is, you know, and it sucks because it's like it sucks because it's like you know, unless it's like prison sex, I guess. But you know, it sucks that it's always framed around a woman, because that's just, you know, I feel like writers find that, oh, that's easy to write. I'll just make the woman, this is her lowest point and whatever, and she's gonna rise up beyond that point or whatever. But you know, it's a very weak, um, it's a very weak reason to do it. So, but it's been a while since I've seen a movie where it has that in it, where it really is part of the character's like development of who they are. I'm not even gonna say genders, like just because you know guys can, you know, that's why I said prison sex because you know guys can get raped too. It's just back to what I was saying earlier. It's like I feel like lazy writing is more like they frame it around women more. Um, but uh, but yeah, it is concerning about some of the things that happen. Um, when someone writes something because, and it's funny too is I forgot where I heard this line from, where it's not a line because it is true. Like um you know, when writers the Google search history will have some really weird shit because they're trying to research something.
Hmm.
So it's kind of funny because it's like, well, are you really researching it for research purposes, or is it your own like fantasy that you're trying to? Not being serious when I say that, but kind of like that is the funny like jab that you can like say to someone because when I research something, yeah, it gets a little weird sometimes too. I guess not too weird because Artemis is pretty vanilla, but it's other elements I remember when I was searching up suicide and therapy and all that. I think Google like started to like put a thing on my Google search like if you need help, whatever, and then it gave me a hotline for help. I was like, okay. So it's like, yeah, our search history as writers can get a little funny sometimes if you
Yeah, maybe
out of
this is
context.
spoiler, but in one context where he was researching that.
When I was writing Aiden's backstory, and his relationship with his therapist, I was trying because there was a big deal about and it's kind of I would say it's tropey, for to fall in love with your therapist, whatever. So I really wanted to crafting his backstory, crafting her backstory, crafting their relationship. I did a lot of research um, on uh, on therapy and the relationships with clients and a therapist, and researching Aiden's history because he I think it was book chapter 3. Um, we got June's side of the story of how they met, and Aiden gave Kendra his other side of the story of why he's so reluctant on partnerships and contracts and all that stuff because and we're still like peeling the layers off of Aiden's backstory, of that event in his life. But yeah, I was trying to search like the effects of like depression and how that affects people, and how therapists communicate with their clients, and the taboo-ness of falling in love with your client or your therapist, which is probably really common. It is probably common, and like I said, it's a trope. And that's why I was doing a lot of research for them because I try to do enough research. I do get called out a lot on the military stuff because even though I was military, I wasn't like Marine. So there's a lot of stuff I don't know. So when someone does approach me about it, like, okay, I take notes, and then I put that into I re-implement it into the story as a fix. Like people had someone had an issue with Aiden's mom's rank. They were saying with her career she should be at this rank, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. The only reason why I put her a lower rank because I I I don't want these characters to be like super powered. They already a lot of people already think they are, which is kind of a funny thing if you really think about it. Like the only geniuses in the story are Aiden and Kendra, and then you could say June is too because of her background as a biology major. Um, that's it, really. The other girls are just competent. I mean, if competence is a if you think competence is a superpower, then I don't know what to say about that.
Well, I guess the main question that many people might be interested, do you have a favorite character? And I'll leave it very open-ended question.
Honestly, like I was gonna say, if you asked me during book one, it would probably be Coco because, which is so funny because like she's hardly in any scenes, but when she is in a scene, she's pretty like if you really need to pay attention to like what she does as a character in the behind the scenes, like in like at the end of chapter
Who is
one.
Coco? Just for people.
Sorry, Coco is the dog that the AI dog that Kendra and Aiden had developed back in high school, and he gave it to Kendra as a graduation gift. And she basically quote unquote raised it to from a little toy dog to a full-fledged android in her own right. um, uh, and so that's her little backstory. But if in chapter one you kind of see her actions, where her and Kendra and Aiden are talking, and then you see Coco sniffing the bowl of whatever Kendra was eating, and then takes it, and then you never see that bowl again in the rest of that scene. But it's just little things like that that she has, this little action, the quirks and little things she has. But it's obviously, now that Artemis is fully integrated into the story now, it's been such a fun character to like. She's been such an evolution in both like design and her involvement in the story. Like when I first conceptualized her, it was so because it's like, how many times has AI been done in media before? Like it's been, we can name off so many characters that are AI. It's just like, how do you make yours different, or not just not different, because that's always going to be a feat in and of itself. But how to make her unique enough to where it's like she's not referenced as somebody like another character in pulp culture or just history in general. Um, so writing her scenes, just choosing the route I chose with her was, you know, um, just a lot of just fun. Uh, it was a challenge because other character, her introduction, she had no lines basically other than repeating what other people said. So I had to really like emphasize her character through visual cues, expressions, reactions to something, things like that, because she had no dialogue basically. She had the cooing, but even that was a challenge because I was like trying to struggle, like, how do I emphasize this sound? Because I'm not trying, she's not mimicking a baby, even though that's what a lot of people associate it as. It's not that she's mimicking. And then I tried doing a bunch of research. I think I even threw a phrase in there, or a term that one of the characters said, because it's a real term. People who lack the ability to speak, so they make sounds. So I was trying to figure out, how do I emphasize this, and I just kept circling back to cooing, and then I was just like, that wasn't enough. So I had to hire someone to voice the lines, and then now it's emphasized more because it was more of like someone, not necessarily goo goo gaga, but someone trying to create a sound, but they don't have the ability to speak like words, so they just like or things like that. So that again, that she's such a challenging character to write, even in chapter 7, which I won't, for people who haven't played this yet, I won't say anything about it. But there's an evolution in her character with each chapter, and trying to make that, because she is a learning machine. Books is something she enjoys, not because she loves to read, it's just she loves information. But not to say she won't learn to love to read, but she's an information sponge, so she learns at a much higher rate. So trying to make that without giving readers whiplash of her character is such a challenge. So and then the fact that her scenes are always fun to write too. So it's like there's so much involved with Artemis that she's just so much fun. She's my favorite character because there's so many reasons. Just crafting her character, getting it right, and then her evolution as the story goes. It's such a joy to like just get to her scenes.
Yeah, and that's a good way to avoid answering which love interest is your favorite. Um, but yeah, I guess how do you think about who are you writing the next scene for? Do you try to keep count of number of possible dates, number of renders, possibly number of sex scenes? We have I don't know if you have the number of how many potential love interests. Not to mention, there's also a difference between love interest and a person you can have some relationship with.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, how do you think about that? Both the balancing and who is a love
Honestly,
interest.
that is that's been my biggest hurdle. When I started this, you know, I admit I bit off way more than I could chew, because there's 10 main love interests, main girls in there. 10 altogether. There was 12. Cassie got the axe and Zoe got the axe because one, I just kept writing Cassie's character into a hole each time. Like I wasn't each time like I got an opportunity to redeem her in chapter 1 or chapter 2 in the early chapters to the point where there was no return. I just kept digging her a deeper hole, and I just kept doing it with a smile. So I was like, there's no bringing this character back. So I just ran with it, and and I just eventually ultimately took her off the roster as a leverage. She was like, there's no way I'm gonna do it because like it's just too much fun to write her as a villain. But Zoe was Zoe was another one because she her model was so difficult to because that's another frustrating thing about Daz is like you're bound to the morphs of um of what's your library. In Daz, you have a library of morphs that you can mix and match and create a character that's based. You have a base model, and then you add morphs to really make them more unique. So with hers, and again, chapter 1 was my introduction into this, and so creating characters was she was one of the first ones I created. So there's a lot of like roughness with her. Um, and I just was not happy with her appearance. It was just so like the hair that I chose for her, the face model, she was a little too angular. She needed more softness around her features. And so when I finally fixed her, it caused a lot of I used so many morphs that when she smiled, it was almost like plastic surgery. Like when someone smiles, like their face kind of like distorts a little bit, or they don't have an expression. But it was so hard. And then when I finally got the fix, we were like in chapter 4 at this point. So I was like, it really sucks because like, you know, I had to push her story back so many times. It got to the point where the main story had already taken off. And like for her to play catch up, like I'm already doing that with Artemis. I can't do that with this character. So that's why I wrote her scene the way I did in chapter 7 as a way to like, do what I did with her to cleanly resolve that. But
Jesus,
you know,
for people who know what happened, that's kind of it's brutal.
yeah, yeah. Not to say spoilers, but I thought it was it was a nice way to like it was a what would you call it, like a diamond in the rough like moment for me because it was like I have this opportunity to do something that elevates one character at the sacrifice of another, and it worked in my opinion. And so I shaped it that way. And again, that goes back to what I was saying that I know how the story's going to go and unfold, but sometimes something happens and it evolves into something different. And then because that wasn't the original plan, what would happen. And but I saw it as a golden opportunity for both characters in both situations. So because chapter 7 was, there were things that happened in there that had to like shift things around story wise. But anyways, yeah, main girls, side girls. There's 10. Kendra, Artemis, the therapist, Zelda, Reina, Katie, Paige, Veronica, Reina, and Naomi, and then June. I probably said one of them twice. But there's 10, and then the side girls are the freshmen. You know, Destiny, Dominique, Anna. Uh, it's funny how much attention Myra got from this episode just from being in one chapter. But unfortunately, I do have to say she is moving. I was explicit in her action that she is moving. So no, we're gonna see her one more time, and then she's in a bon voyage um, to her next life. But yeah. It did, like I said, I bit off way more than I can chew. Starting off with this, I've said this a million times. My next project, I'm limiting myself to 5 characters because it's like, to your point where you're saying like how do you decide who gets what or how much screen time does one character get, and that's the thing that I'm pretty sure frustrates my followers or anybody who gets into Artemis is there's no uh and again, it goes back to what I said that it's not about the it's not about Artemis isn't about the girls. It's about the overall story. The girls are just there as companions and they're part of the story in their own way. But this isn't a dating simulator. This isn't a like a slice of life type of like, oh, here's day one, here's what happened, and today, oh, I'm gonna play with Zelda today. No, there's an overarching story, and each character has their role, big or small, to play in it. And just like Mass Effect, Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age, before it sucked, there's these characters that have their involvement, and even though they're not love interests, obviously for obvious reasons, even the cameos have their role to play. Like I choose them to be part of Artemis because I was like, that'd be pretty cool because their talents fit what I'm going for. So it's mainly about the story first, obviously. Then the girls are the second layer, and then beyond that. But it was really hard to balance them because back in chapter 1, 2, and 3, I used to do these polls every update where I was like, okay, so I have these characters in mind, and at the time, Kindred was, well, I'm pretty sure everyone's still, a majority is still Team Kindred, but I actually got to the point where I had to take her off the roster because I was like, I knew everyone was going to pick her all the time, so I was like, okay, so here are the characters who don't have scenes this chapter. Vote who's going to have a date in this chapter, and that's how the whole Katie and Zelda split happened because uh, I I want to say they voted, the majority of the vote went to Katie, and Zelda got sidelined. So I had to like put Zelda in the next update to kind of get her story into it because obviously at this point of the story, for those who are following, kind of see where her role is evolving to, not her directly, but her connections. So I had to like put her back in. Like I had to. I mean, it was kind of like skewing my schedule of like events happening. So that's why I had to stop doing those votes because I had to make room for it, and it was basically just extra scenes that at this point I didn't have time to do. So it's really hard balance. That's why like 5 is a good number for me. Um, for my next project. 5 is the hard limit. I already know what type of characters they're going to be. Well, not really. I haven't fleshed them out fully, but the type of characters they are. Um, and with a smaller cast, yeah, I can do more events with them as the chapter goes on because right now they're so spread out in Artemis because I have 10 characters, and the way I work is when I have a character, this other character just isn't going to randomly show up like you mentioned, like scene order and all that. So right now I'm working on the scene, and it involves Kendra and the Enidian Vidius, I ran his company, and then we shift focus to the next scene is Aiden, and then after that, the next scene is Cassie. After that, so it's like it's hard to say like. And I know people might be disappointed by this answer, but it's not really like about who gets what scenes. It's whatever the story calls for, and that's why I like to have these downtime scenes too, where Aiden kind of has to like wind down and like try to focus on himself, and at that point I bring it. If the opportunity comes up, um, it becomes a scene where yeah, he will call so and so up, or he will call this person up, but it gets it gets so convoluted because again you have 10 characters, like the cemetery scene in chapter 6 where he had to make that phone call. It was like, god damn, I had to like do 8 different scenes because 2 of the characters are already there, so that saved me a spot. But like, well, 3 characters technically. uh but I'm like, god damn, I got like 7 scenes I have to create, and I shot myself in the foot because I had my genius idea at the Halloween party was to make a sub scene where if you win the game, the guessing game, you get these tickets to a dinner. And now I'm thinking, I've been thinking about since that day, since chapter 4. I've been thinking about it, it's like, fuck, I have to do X amount of scenes for that dinner date, and I got to figure out how to vary them up so it's not just, you know, same shape, different color, so to speak. So it's not easy to juggle these scenes, and it's not easy to juggle because again, my main priority is the story itself. I do keep in mind that these characters, you know, these relationships need to be sustained or developed more. So, you know, I have to like weave those into like the core episode or the core chapter. But for the most part, main story comes first. Romance characters that involve those get weaved in, and then if I have time that I can like order a scene that makes sense story flow wise, then I'll do that. So it's not an easy process for this many characters.
Is that why you will f force people to make a choice in chapter 8? Because just to be done with it for the rest of the game.
Yeah and no. Yeah, because you know, I wanted to give people the opportunity to get these notice characters a little bit more. That's why I took 8 chapters to do because you know, we're at two. We're closing book 3 or book 2, and so that means we have book 3 and 4 to, you know, of scenes that involve you being steady with this character, as opposed to just dates or whatever. So it's more involvement in the story, but at the same time, uh, you know, being this being being so many chapters as well is because there's so many cast members, and like I said before, it's like trying to like weave these characters into the story, trying to weave these characters into the story where it makes sense with the flow of narrative. The narrative flow makes sense because it's like, um you know, in the early stages it was a little easier because Aiden's getting to know these people a little bit more, so he could just call them up, say, hey, you're basically asking them out on a date, literally. Do you want to hang out? Do you want to go here? Blah blah blah. So, and then each chapter goes out. It's like I have to try to like develop those relationships more. And Katie was the hardest one because she has her role. It's just that her role really didn't wasn't emphasized as much until Artemis came to be. So it's hard. It's really hard. So and so yeah, making your decision at this point does make it easier because now I can be like, it makes sense to have this character here, or it makes sense because now you're going to be in a relationship. So the flirting is still there, but you're not trying to like you're not trying to uh, get more involved with this person. You are involved with them. So there's you know, there's no room for guessing anymore. You are with this person. There's no more, you know, uh, relationship development. Well, there is still some, but not to the extent of like we're still in that dating phase. Um, and then of course the if you're going the mana horror route, that is the option too. It's just the roster is going to be limited to who you can fool around with.
Artemis is one of the few games where I have like save slots for like replaying specific scenes. Like I have
Yeah.
the Zelda date. I go through that like every now and then because I really like it.
Nice.
Have you thought about doing what I would call almost like beach episodes?
Oh,
Maybe
fan service,
uh
basically.
well kinda, but sort of like either maybe even like separate DLC
Uh-huh.
or something like that, straight up like completely out of the story with one or two characters. I think I've seen some AVNs do it, like maybe like winter episodes where it's like
Uh,
it's
like a
completely
holiday episode.
sorry.
Like a holiday episode, like where it's just
Yeah,
the
yeah, like
out of context almost. Not
yeah,
out of
yeah.
context.
Like it
Uh,
either takes place after maybe the thing or during or some, you know, inambiguous, but sort of straight up just you want to enjoy some time with the characters you like.
yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I've seen that done in anime too, and I always thought about I always thought about like this bridge between because there isn't going to be any time skips in Artemis. Every episode, every chapter is a roughly a week long. Um, and at this point, it's like I'm trying to find a way to like, because like I have entertained the idea of a small time jump, like maybe like a couple of weeks, nothing crazy, like a year or a month or a year or whatever. So I wanted to, if I did that, I would want to do something like that to kind of have a period in that moment where it kind of like it's just nothing about the story. It's just you're hanging out with everybody, and then yeah, you can choose um, someone to go do something with. There is something similar that may happen in the actual story because um, for those who haven't caught on, uh, Kendra and Aiden are about a few weeks apart. Their birthdays. In this chapter 8, we're getting Aiden's birthday party as a way to close out book 3, book 2, and then Kendra's party is going to be chapter 10, I believe it is. Um, her birthday is in December. I haven't really specified the other characters when their dates happen, but it won't be happening within the story time because it's hard enough to create events for these characters alone. But Kendra, I thought about something like Kendra's party because she's at that point she's made friends with she's expanded her friends from just Coco to Aiden now to now June, and to the extent of Raina's company, sorority. Some of the sorority girls intern there, so I was thinking about like, should that be like a almost like a I want to say a filler episode because I don't want people to think like this chapter is like irrelevant or anything like that. But the idea that Aiden is it revolves around him, so in his relationship, so and that is story relevant, whereas Kendra's technically isn't story relevant. So, but it does exist there as something I've been thinking about narratively. So I'm like, that might be a partial episode where because the premise is she we've never seen her party really, and being a DJ, I guess chapter 8 would be seeing her abilities as a as an MC. But you know as far as what your question was asking, I was thinking about that might fall in line of what I was planning for her birthday party, which is it's I'm still like, because like I said, the idea is there what I want, but fleshing it out usually doesn't happen until like either the chapter before or leading up to it comes up where I flesh out the ideas a little bit more. But something that involves her, all the friends she's made, and now you're a guest to this party, and you're not the center of attention, so you get to do whatever you want. And it's likely, I thought about, I was like, well, she could probably have a yacht party, considering she's you know gonna be flexing her finances a bit more. um and I'm like, well, it's the winter. Who has yacht parties in the winter? I'm like, well, it's her. She probably has some sort of like tech where it's like some heater on the yacht or something, or something that revolves around it to make so they can be in so they could be in bikinis. Granted, they're in December in California, which it does get super cold in the winter time. So I don't know. Again, these are ideas that I like even though I'm saying it now, don't expect that to happen because yes, a birthday party is happening for her. How, what, when, that part is still in the air. It's still being fleshed out. So that might be what you're the closest thing to what you were asking.
Do you expect people to play multiple times to, go with the other girls? Because from what you've said, I don't think plot changes much, if at all, by making different decisions. So,
Mm-mm.
how do you think about that? How do you think about, I'm not sure if
Yes.
replayability, but
Right. Yes and no. Not much changes other than the scenes that you see as far as like book one and two go. But Artemis has, when she was introduced in book five, I also introduced this system called her discernment protocol system, which basically is it's not a morale system, even though it feels like it. Um, it's basically how you handle things. Like, is she gonna be more of a firm, it's a firm empathy? Is she be more empathetic, or is she gonna be a little bit more a little aggressive in how she handles or approaches situations? So how that score changes does change how certain scenes play out. Um, after following going into book three and four, those that's where the story changes are going to be mostly. But yeah, you're right. Book one and two, for the most part, story doesn't change much because the core system isn't introduced yet. But um, that has been a struggle too, and it's something I think about like my for my next project. Um, uh, and it might, and again, having a smaller cast means, and the way here in Artemis, these characters, it's like they're different factions, so they're all like spread out. In my next project, you're more of a party, so you're always around these people, so it's gonna be less making time for them technically, and being able to do there's going to be more story fluctuations with my next project because smaller cast, the way the cast is grouped this time, will let me kind of change things more without having to dramatically change how I execute it. So for example, let's say I'm doing something with Reina, um, and she changes something in her storyline. Well, um, I have to have so many characters be updated of the information as it comes through, and by information I mean whatever happened. Like, let's say Reina sold the ink property, so now everyone involved in the sorority has to know, oh, Reina's selling our property all of a sudden. It's not going to happen. I'm just giving an example, but uh and then those involved, and then for some, since Kendra has some sort of relationship now with these people, she's gonna have to find out, well, not have to, but it's gonna have, so there's more information that has to get updated across the board differently because everyone lives in different like spaces. But in the next project, since everyone is kind of grouped up, there's less of that juggling involved, unless the party splits, and which, yeah, obviously is going to happen. But um, there's the smaller cast and tighter story elements does give me more room to be flexible with the story, just because um, that's been another struggle of mine, because I know people can do it, like even with Artemis story, I'm pretty sure they can figure it out. But for me, it's a little bit harder to keep a map of all the events happening when things start to deviate from the main plot.
so that brings me to sort of like a big question,
Mhm.
and it connects to the idea of beach episodes, because generally what they are kinetic novels. And I would have a question for you. Why even give players a choice? Why not make it a kinetic novel if it is about the plot, the story, and not necessarily about the choices?
And yeah, the choices were mostly, I shouldn't say mostly, but they're kind of like in the moment, like how do you want to react to this question, or how do you want to say this, or how do you want to do this or that. Obviously, yeah, you're right, some situations are kinetic, like one of the biggest kinetic choices was, not choices, but one of the kinetic storylines was involving MC's dad. Like, Aiden's kind of vague about how he's not really vague. He's kind of expressive of how he feels about it, but at the same time, we don't really know the full story. Only what Ava said, and even then, we started to learn that she really didn't talk about him much. She raised Aiden to this guy exists, but he's you know the real reason why he was there was never really like told to Aiden, and Aiden, I guess Aiden just didn't care enough to like ask, because as we've seen so far, he's kind of hyper focused on his hobbies and his life. I never really questioned. He basically just trusts his mom enough. If she doesn't want him in life, then fine. So that's one kinetic storyline that's kind of there. Um, but yeah, for the most part, the actual impact of choices comes from uh, the start of book two, where you're trying to train Artemis and her disarmament protocol is developing, and then book three and four, those choices that you make, that you've made and continue to make throughout book three, continue to increase those numbers for her, or I shouldn't say numbers, the experience for her, and though, and by extension, those actually change, deviates the story a little bit, and we actually will see a little bit of a glimpse of those choices. There will be scenarios in this chapter coming up that's going to showcase uh, her involvement in things. So, I said, she's coming back in chapter 8, and then we're going to see her come out as a, you know, after the events of post chapter 7. So, we can see this evolution of character, and then how her choices are to impact. It's kind of a weird thing to say, because you're not. It's not your choices technically, but it's how you shaped her that is going to change how events play out. It's a weird juggle, but like I said, I kind of wanted to do something different with her, that was a little different with AI, and I figured this is a nice way to like, you know, to showcase that a little bit.
Well, I guess with this, we've discussed a lot today. Um, Before we go into how people can support you, is there anything you'd like to bring up or you'd like to mention, um, either from what we've talked about or maybe something we didn't mention?
No, honestly, these were great questions. And it really made me think about a lot of things. But and it was a joy, kind of like discussing them with you. But yeah, I don't have anything that comes to mind right now.
Well, where can people support you if they want to play or if they want to make sure you continue doing this or maybe one day get the second game?
Yeah, I don't even know what my Patreon is. So I have to
You can just
type it
mention
out.
Patreon and we'll put it
Yeah,
in the description.
yeah. I have. It's on Patreon if you want to support. If you want to be part of the core support, or it's also available on Steam if you don't like the Patreon platform. Those are the ones that I'm are my key sources of information, and where I release updates.
Yeah, and as I've said, I'll put it into the description, and if there's anything else, I can put it afterwards. With that, thank you, digi.B, for joining me today
No,
on the AVN desk. And yeah, thank you.
no, I appreciate the time you took, Daniel. And this was fun. This is my first one, so it was really fun.
Sounds good. And I'll see everybody at another episode of the AVN desk. Until then, bye bye.